In the film, Townes Van Zandt says, if you're going to write a song, you're going to die a little. What does that mean to you, and to what degree is that true about the art that you make?
Well, the line is, it's funny. It's kind of interesting. I hired Charlie Sexton to play Townes Van Zandt, and it's part of Richard Linklater's theory, which is that if you're going to have a genius in a movie, you have to have a genius play them. Like, it doesn't work. And Charlie Sexton is one of the great guitarists of our generation. He's been playing with Dylan for 20 years, and he's just an amazing person, and he knows a tremendous amount about music. And I had written in this script, my line that I'd written was, you know, you got to live the song. And Charlie came into set with me, he said, by the way, this is such a bad line. And I'm like, why? He said, you got to live the song. What do you? And he started, you sound like, you know, he started making fun of some musicians or something. You know, he's like, you got to live it. You don't have to live it, you got to die it. I was like, what does that mean? And I'm putting that in the movie, you know?
Yeah.
And what he means a little bit, in the nice way, is that when a really great work of art is like letting the leaves fall off a tree, you know, it's a piece of you that you're like done with, but it's real. It's a real piece of you, and you actually give it away. Kazan's book, he talks a lot about that there has to be blood in the celluloid. Real. I mean, when Brando's screaming at Waterfront, you know, I'm not a rat, I'm not a rat. I mean, there's something amazing is happening in that frame, you know, that still reverberates all these decades later, because there's a man in that frame. There's a life, there's a generations intersection happening in that.
That's a legend, not a star.
Yeah, it's really exciting. And so Townes Van Zandt is a great, I think, great poet. And when I was right around before sunrise, Richard Linklater had a friend who was making a documentary about Townes. And, you know, this happens in the film community. He wanted to know if I wanted to, they needed some money to help do it. And so I got to watch all this footage that they were cutting together, and I saw these interviews with him, and he asks questions that hurt me. Like, he had these beliefs that to really communicate on a high level, you had to give up your life. You had to give up your family. You had to give up happiness. You had to give up your children. You had to give up, you had to become entirely solely focused. And as a 23-year-old, and I admired him so much that I remember just watching this interview, and I called Linklater up, and I said, what do you think about that? And he's like, I can't stop thinking about it. Because there's something haunting about the way he says it. And you know, it's not true. You know, it's fundamental. I mean, what the movie Blaze to me is about, from my secret to the movie, is these kind of wells in which creativity comes from. And one comes from love. One comes, Thoreau, Walt Whitman, great love and joy in experiencing sunrises and sunsets, and when your child first eats peas, and the first time, you know, when your wife pinches you when she's doing the dishes and you laugh, like there's creativity is bubbling up and it's beautiful. And then there's another well. And what's confusing as a young person is it's a very deep and profound well as well. And it's very dark, and it's self-loathing, and it's self-hatred, and it's hatred of others, and it's loss, and a lack of forgiveness, and anger, and all that is very real. You know that it's these two wells, and for me in the movie, this is not life, but his relationship with Sybil, they fell in love in this treehouse. And when I read this, it was amazing. He wrote a lot of his best songs in this treehouse. He lived for a couple years just in a treehouse in the woods. And it's like, in my mind, it was this place where the masculine and feminine is united and all is right and creativity happens all by itself. And then you go into the world and you try to sell that creativity. And you start getting hurt. Because sometimes the world doesn't want to buy what you're selling, you know? And and then there's pain, and then there's confusion, and then there's other people, and then there's society. You know, it's a Bukowski line. It's not that I don't like people. I just feel better when they're not around, right? I mean,
Yeah.
it's like, and then you meet another voice, which says, fuck them. Let's set it all on fire. Let's watch it burn, you know? And it is amazing how powerful that energy is. And it's to be taken very seriously, you know? And so the movie is trying to talk about how we try to integrate those two different wells and how you can, that's what the movie's about to me.